July 5th, 1943, 4:30 in the morning. A 150-kilometer wide bulge in Russia's Kursk region. Inside this bulge, 2 million soldiers, 6,000 tanks, and 4,000 aircraft are waiting. The Soviets are waiting. The Nazis are coming. Friends, the story I'm telling you today is the biggest tank battle of World War II, the bloodiest land engagement in history, and Hitler's last great gamble, the Battle of Kursk. This battle has everything: massive tank armies, secret preparations, espionage, and the Battle of Prokhorovka, where 800 tanks clashed around a single village. If you're ready, we're heading to the summer of 1943, right into the middle of the world's biggest tank battle. Let's begin. Why Kursk? Let's start with the question, why here? Look at the map and you'll see. The city of Kursk is in the center, surrounded by German lines from the west and south, forming a bulge extending eastward. A 150-kilometer wide, 100-kilometer deep peninsula jutting into Soviet territory. This bulge is a gift for military strategists, for both the Germans and the Soviets. Hitler and his generals look at it and think, if we strike at the base of this bulge, we can encircle 200,000 Soviet soldiers. Cliché but true. One cut, two moves. But Stalin and Zhukov look at the same map, and they say, okay, defending the bulge is hard, but if the Germans attack here, we know where they'll strike, and we can wait for them. That's the strategic importance of Kursk, a natural trap. And in the spring of 1943, both sides are focused on this trap. So why 1943? Why now? Because after Stalingrad, things changed. Germany is on the defensive, but Hitler still dreams of one last great offensive. A victory for morale and prestige in the East is essential, and Kursk seems like the key to that victory. The German plan is called Citadel. Quite an ambitious name, isn't it? But actually it makes sense, because the plan is to encircle the Kursk bulge with pincers and seize the citadel inside. Here's the plan. 2 army groups will attack simultaneously from 2 directions. From the north, the 9th Army under Field Marshal Walter Model. From the south, the 4th Panzer Army under Field Marshal Erich von Manstein. Both will advance toward Kursk, meet in the middle, and encircle the Soviet armies in the bulge. But the interesting part is the preparation process. Hitler initially wants to attack in May. The generals say, we're not ready. He says June, again, not ready. It's postponed to July, and this delay changes the fate of the battle. Because the Soviets use this time, Zhukov and Vasilevsky turn the Kursk bulge into a literal killing ground. 6 defensive lines, over 4,000 tank traps, 20,000 kilometers of trenches, minefields, barbed wire obstacles, flamethrower tank traps. Everything calculated, everything ready. And don't the Germans know about these preparations? No, they do. British intelligence cracks the Enigma codes and relays them to the Soviets. Even a spy network called Lucy sends details of German plans to Moscow via Switzerland. So the Soviets know where, when, and with how many tanks the Germans will attack. But Hitler still gives the order. Citadel begins. Why? Because he has new super weapons. And he trusts them too much. Yes, now let's get into tank technology, because Kursk is a turning point in the evolution of tank warfare. The Germans have 2 new monsters in their hands. First, the Tiger 1, 57 tons, with an 88mm gun that can destroy any Soviet tank in a single shot. Its armor is so thick that most Soviet tanks can't penetrate it. Second, the Panther, lighter, faster, more modern. With sloped armor and a long-barreled gun, it's as deadly as the Tiger, but more maneuverable. And of course, the old friend Ferdinand. Not really a tank, but a tank destroyer. 88mm gun, 200mm frontal armor. Slow, but nearly invincible. Hitler trusts these new tanks so much that he postpones Citadel until they're ready. Once the Tigers and Panthers arrive, the Soviets won't stand a chance, he thinks. But there's a problem here. These new tanks are still babies. Mechanical failures, engine problems, untrained crews, especially the Panthers. In the first days, they break down on their own, burn, malfunction. And the Soviets? They also have a new card, the T-34-85, the improved version of the legendary T-34. More powerful gun, thicker armor, better turret, and in much, much greater numbers. At Kursk, the Soviets have 5,130 tanks, the Germans have 2,700. So almost a 2-to-1 superiority. But the Germans rely on quality, the Soviets on quantity. On the morning of July 5, 1943, at 4:30, these two giant forces clash, and the noise can be heard from 50 kilometers away. Let's start from the north. Field Marshal Model, a disciplined, cool-headed defense specialist commander. His 9th Army attacks the northern shoulder of the Kursk Bulge. But what's waiting for him? He knows, because the Soviet defense here is incredible. Rokossovsky's central front has set up 6 defensive lines. Each line has tank ditches, minefields, machine gun nests. And behind them all, tank units are waiting. Model's Tigers advance. They enter the first minefields. Exploding mines stop tanks. And right at this moment, Soviet tank hunters and flamethrowers emerge from the trenches and attack. The German advance slows, and stops. By the end of the first day, Model has advanced only 6 kilometers. His plan had 30 kilometers, and these 6 kilometers are won with blood, fire, and death. Days pass. Every day the same scenario. German tanks hit mines, Soviet counterattacks are repelled, but they can't advance. The Tigers are very powerful, yes. They destroy over 100 Soviet tanks in a single day. But there are few of them. And for every destroyed Tiger, a new Tiger doesn't arrive. By July 12th, Model has advanced 20 kilometers. But Kursk is still 100 kilometers away. And the losses are unbearable. 25,000 dead, 200 tanks lost. Hitler gives the order to give up the north. Model withdraws. The northern pincer is broken. But in the south, Manstein is still fighting. And there, the biggest tank clash in history is taking place. The southern front is very different from the north. Here, the commander is the most talented strategist of the German army, Field Marshal Erich von Manstein, and in his hands, the 4th Panzer Army and the SS Panzer Corps, SS Leibstandarte, SS Das Reich, SS Totenkopf, the most elite tank units of Nazi ideology. Manstein is more aggressive, more flexible than Model, and the Soviet defense in the south isn't as deep as in the north. On the first day, the Germans advance 15 kilometers. On the second day, 20 kilometers. Hoth's tank units are rapidly advancing toward Kursk, but facing them is the Voronezh front. Its commander, General Vatutin, and waiting, the 1st Tank Army under General Katakov. But it's not enough. Manstein's SS panzers are too strong, too fast. By the evening of July 11th, the situation is critical. Manstein has reached the town of Prokhorovka. This town is the southern gate of Kursk. If it falls, he can meet Model coming from the north and cut off the bulge. Stalin and Zhukov are in panic. They send reinforcements to Vatutin, the 5th Guards Tank Army under General Rotmistrov. 800 tanks, and the order is clear. Stop them at Prokhorovka. July 12, 1943. 8:30 in the morning, the Prokhorovka fields. 2 giant tank armies are advancing toward each other. A total of 1,500 tanks, 2,000 guns, 5,000 aircraft will clash in this small area. Rotmistrov's T-34s are rapidly diving straight into the German lines. Why? Because the T-34's gun can only penetrate the Tiger's side armor from close range. So the only chance is to get close, infiltrate, and shoot from close range. And this means total slaughter. Tanks are firing at each other from 200 meters, 100 meters, 50 meters. Sometimes they collide. Turrets turn, engines burn, crews die burning. SS Leibstandarte Commander Piper writes in his report, "Soviet tanks are diving at us, almost committing suicide, but they don't stop. They don't stop." By the end of the day, 300 to 400 tanks are burning wrecks in Prokhorovka. It's unclear which side they belong to. Soviet losses are heavier, 200 tanks lost. But the German advance has stopped. The SS Panzer Corps has lost its offensive capability after this bloody field battle. Prokhorovka is the Waterloo of tank battles. But here, despite the losses, the side that successfully defended is the Soviets. July 13th, 1943. Hitler at the Wolf's Lair headquarters. Situation reports in front of him. Model stopped in the north. Manstein bogged down in the south, losses exceeding 50,000, 500 tanks lost. And worst of all, the Allies have landed in Sicily. Italy is under threat. Hitler gives the order to stop Citadel. Manstein objects. "A few more days, we'll succeed." But Hitler doesn't listen. "It's over," he says. "The era of offensives in the east is finished." And indeed it is. Kursk is the German army's last major offensive. From now on, constant retreat, constant defense on the Eastern Front. But the end of Kursk doesn't mean the end of the fighting. On August 5th, the Soviets launched their counteroffensive. Belgorod, Kharkov are retaken. Manstein's Southern Army is pushed back 150 kilometers. And most importantly, German tank superiority ends. They lose 1,500 tanks at Kursk. Production can't keep up with losses. Tigers and Panthers are no longer enough. Because facing them, the number of T-34s is increasing every day. Zhukov writes in his report, "At Kursk, we stopped the Germans' last offensive. Now we will attack, and we will chase them all the way to Berlin." Let's look at the numbers, because Kursk is truly the biggest tank battle in history. German losses, 50 to 60,000 dead and wounded, 1,500 tanks and tank destroyers, 1,000 aircraft, and most valuable, offensive capability. They will never again launch a major attack in the east. Soviet losses, 177,000 dead, 600,000 wounded, 6,000 tanks and armored vehicles, 1,600 aircraft, much heavier. But losses they can sustain. Because production doesn't stop, human resources don't run out. Strategic result: the balance on the Eastern Front has completely shifted in favor of the Soviets. The Germans are now on the defensive. And this defense will continue until Berlin in 1945. But Kursk's impact isn't limited to the east. In the west, the Allies capture Sicily. Mussolini is overthrown. Hitler has to shift the forces he lost at Kursk to Italy. So Kursk is truly one of the turning points of World War II. If Stalingrad was the moral victory, Kursk was the military victory. The end of Nazi Germany began in these fields. What does Kursk teach us? 1. Technology alone isn't enough. Tiger and Panther were superior to the T-34, but few in number, many malfunctions, insufficient logistics. The Soviets' simple but robust, numerically superior tanks defeated the complex but fragile German tanks. 2. Intelligence is half the battle. The Soviets knew the German plan. They were waiting for every move. This is an incredible advantage for preparing defense. 3. The human factor. At Prokhorovka, Soviet tankers, risking death, even committing suicide, dived into the German lines. This courage, this spirit of homeland defense, can't be explained by calculation. And 4. Strategic patience. Zhukov and Stalin waited for the German attack. They prepared the trap, and that trap swallowed the Nazi army. Today, you can still see the traces of that battle in the Kursk fields, tank wrecks, monuments, museums. The monument at Prokhorovka still tells of July 12, 1943. And we tell it too, because this battle changed not just the fate of tanks, but the fate of humanity. That's the story of Kursk. 50 days of hell, 2 million soldiers, 8,000 tanks, and a turning point. Hitler played his last gamble with Citadel, and he lost, because facing him was an enemy that was both prepared and courageous, and numerically superior, and perhaps most importantly, a people defending their homeland. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Write in the comments, in your opinion, Kursk or Stalingrad? Which was more critical for the fate of the war? See you in the next video. History always teaches us something. It's up to us to listen. Goodbye.